Something that we had heard while the protests were going on, that Donald Trump actually had wanted to shoot the protesters. We were just talking at the top of the show about the difference between Joe Biden and his approach to the press, not calling them enemies of the people, and Donald Trump, who not only called people the press enemies of the people, but wanted to send some to jail, threatened to send some to jail, and now, of course, you have here Donald Trump, because people protesting, asking his Secretary of Defense why they couldn't just shoot the protesters.
Yeah, we've had reports before that Trump asked this, but it certainly carries more weight coming from the former Secretary of Defense. I think it's important just to briefly reconstruct those days in late May, early June in 2020, where after George Floyd's death, there were protests across the country, including some big ones outside the White House in Lafayette Park there. And one night, and only one, did things get a little bit out of hand. And there was a fire at a church nearby. And that's when Trump and his family were put into the safe room, the emergency bunker in the White House. And part of what set Trump into a rage in the days following was that word got out that he had done that. And that's when he asked for more aggressive tactics against these protesters. And that's when he decided to take that ill-fated photo op, that walk from the White House through the park to the damaged church. And before he set foot outside the White House, that's when federal law enforcement, members of the military, cleared the park of then completely peaceful protesters, using rough tactics, including tear gas to do so, allowing Trump to walk over to the church and awkwardly hold up a Bible like he had never seen one before. And Esper and Milley were both part of the group, the entourage, was along with Attorney General Barr, who walked over there. But we now know, thanks to reporting, thanks to some of the books that have come out, that both Milley and Esper immediately had second thoughts, realized they wanted nothing to be there, and quickly walked away from the scene. Esper fired a short time later. I'm sure we'll have more revelations in his book when it arrives.
You should be worried. Every day, Trump's GOP inches closer and closer to a violent overthrow of our democracy. Former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper's claim that Trump wanted to shoot George Floyd protesters outside the White House, it isn't the first time. 3 years ago, Trump proposed a similar approach to dealing with undocumented families at the Mexican border.
They write, privately, the president had often talked about fortifying a border wall with a water-filled trench stocked with snakes or alligators, prompting aides to seek a cost estimate. He wanted the wall electrified with spikes on top that could pierce human flesh. Later in a meeting, aides recalled he suggested that they shoot migrants in the legs to slow them down. That's not allowed either, they told him. Annie, it's a serious topic, but already social media is having a good old time wondering who from the White House called on a price check for snakes and alligators. But that aside, this goes to guardrails. Are guardrails still in place in that West Wing?
It does go to guardrails, and the outcome of this story by my colleagues Michael Shear and Julie Davis is that what resulted from this chaotic period where Trump wanted to shut down the entire border was that Stephen Miller saw a huge opportunity to overhaul all of the people who didn't agree with him at DHS, at the Department of Homeland Security, including Kirstjen Nielsen, including people under her, and replace them with loyalists who saw more eye to eye with him.
Esper was fired by Trump after the election because he wasn't willing to attack Americans. He was replaced by Christopher Miller, and you'll love this irony. Miller was the former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and Miller was in charge on January 6th when Trump, acting in concert with Republicans in Congress, attempted a violent overthrow of our government.
President Trump won this election.
They were flipping votes.
Steal the election in Philadelphia.
When you win in a landslide, and they
steal the election in Atlanta,
and it's rigged.
Steal the election in Milwaukee.
It's not acceptable.
This is outrageous.
Let's call out cheating when we find it.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow. Everyone's going to remember who actually stands in the breach and fights tomorrow and who goes running off like a chicken.
We bleed freedom.
This will be their Waterloo.
And we will sacrifice for freedom.
This will be their destruction.
And Miller claims now he didn't bring in the National Guard because he was afraid Trump would use them to seize control.
We're going to storm the fucking Capitol. You fuckers.
This is far from over. Elected officials and disciples of Trump will not acknowledge Biden's victory and openly claim that in 2024 they will overturn any results to the contrary.
Any way we can. I'm not going to take orders, though, from an illegitimate president like Joe Biden. Arizona is going to do things the Arizona way.
They call Democrats pedophiles,
the child pedophilia,
women murderers, and with a world on the precipice of a nuclear conflict, openly support Putin over President Joe Biden.
Please show us Tucker Carlson, the host says. He's the man playing out all the complaints against President Biden.
Churchill said that a democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. And if the GOP continues down this path, we might soon discover if he was right.